Hello.
Hello, police.
Yeah, what's the problem, sir?
We just drove down our farm track.
Yeah.
Go and feed our pheasants. We come across a Range Rover with 3 people in it.
Yeah.
It appears that they're dead. I don't know what's happening. Blood in the motor all over them.
And welcome back to a new video on the Essex Boys case. As always, if you are enjoying the content, please do give the video a thumbs up. And if you're interested in the Essex Boys case or simply true crime in general, don't forget to hit the subscribe button below. Some of the most interesting events surrounding the deaths of Patrick Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe in December 1995 come in the form of the eyewitness accounts which state that a white vehicle was seen with the Range Rover in the days leading up to and the evening of their deaths. This vehicle was described by many as being a white Ford Sierra Cosworth, quite different to the supposed getaway vehicle which was used on the evening of December the 6th. It is claimed that Darren Nichols actually drove a B registration Volkswagen Passat in order to allow Michael Steele and Jack Womes to escape the crime scene. If you haven't checked out my video which goes through the entire timeline of December the 6th and the eyewitness accounts of this white vehicle, I will put a link in the description box below and it will give you the full statement details of these eyewitness accounts. Darren Nichols' version of events for December the 6th, 1995 is that he approaches Workhouse Lane, enters this lane, spins the car around with his headlights facing back towards the A130. It is there that Jack Womes exits the vehicle, takes a bag and disappears into the darkness. Darren Nichols then comes out of Workhouse Lane and then reattends some moments later to collect Michael Steele and Jack Womes. Now, with the snow that lay on the ground, you would have at least assumed that some sort of tread patterns would have been left by this VW Passat. Now, when the officers arrived on the morning of the 7th of December, they took a good look at the entrance to Workhouse Lane. Yet no tyre tracks matching a B registration Volkswagen Passat could be found. The fact that this Volkswagen Passat also had a heavy oil leak, a poor clutch and an exhaust which was hanging off. They even tested this lane for any sort of oil residue which may have been left behind by the getaway vehicle. All of these tests came back as negative. They actually recovered the Volkswagen Passat. They tested this vehicle for gunpowder residue and any DNA which may have been left by the perpetrators. Yet again, these tests came back negative. Officers also took a very good look at the start of Workhouse Lane for any footprints or any sign that someone had walked up and back from the crime scene to commit this murder. Yet, although we had footprints around the vehicle, no other footprints were found entering or exiting Workhouse Lane. Darren Nichols claims that he was waiting at the entrance to this lane and Michael Steele and Jack Womes both arrived on foot before making good their escape. I have often surmised that a second vehicle was involved in the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe, hence the lack of footprints actually entering or exiting Workhouse Lane itself. Not only did we have a huge lack of evidence here to support Darren Nichols' version of events, we also had around 4 or 5 eyewitness accounts of a white vehicle being seen following a Range Rover on the evening of their deaths. This vehicle even pulled in to White House Farm at around 5 PM with a dark coloured Range Rover. As I said earlier, a lot of people describe this vehicle as being similar to a Ford Sierra Cosworth. When we take a look to the entrance of the lane in question, we have a vast array of tyre tracks, yet none actually matched up, as I said earlier, with the Volkswagen Passat supposedly driven by Darren Nichols. Now, what we have in front of us here is a Goodyear Eagle NCT2 high performance tyre, a tyre commonly found on a Ford Sierra Cosworth. Now, what would the chances be of actually finding such a tread pattern at the entrance to Workhouse Lane? I mean, we don't have a Volkswagen Passat tyre track, we don't have any oil residue left from that vehicle. But surprisingly enough, we do actually have this exact tyre track left at the scene of the crime. Let's take a look at the following photograph and focus in on the left-hand side yellow police marker. This tread pattern is incredibly distinct, and it was very popular with more high-performance vehicles throughout the early to mid-1990s. Certainly not the tyre you would expect to find on a B registration Volkswagen Passat. Now, the first thing I looked at and the first thing that I considered when trying to debunk this tyre track was, could it have been left by one of the first responding police officers? Well, I guess what actually counts against that is the fact that this has been marked as a tyre track of interest by the police themselves. We have on the right hand side what I believe to be a more of an off-road pattern, so more than likely from the Range Rover itself. And then on the left hand side, another one which has been marked, which is clearly a Goodyear NCT 2. Now, as you can see in front of you, there are a multitude of tyre tracks both entering and exiting Workhouse Lane. But only these two tyre tracks were marked out as tracks of importance by those investigating officers. That tells me that the one on the left-hand side is more than likely not left by one of the earlier attending police officers. So does this tie in with the multitude of eyewitness accounts which came forward after these murders describing a white high-performance vehicle following the Range Rover on the evening of their death? Could this explain why we have a high-performance tyre track to the entrance of Workhouse Lane? It surprises me in a lot of ways that this tyre track wasn't used by the defence. I haven't seen it anywhere in the actual court transcripts or any of the cross-examination or in any of the defence for Michael Steele and Jack Womes that this tyre track may have tied in with the white vehicle being seen following the Range Rover on the evening of their death. What we have is one man's testimony, as in Darren Nichols, who claims he was driving, as I said earlier, a Volkswagen Passat. Nowhere in this lane does a Volkswagen Passat tyre track enter or exit Workhouse Lane. They recovered the vehicle sometime after this crime was committed, and no doubt these tyre tracks would have been checked, they would have been tested, but nothing came back in terms of tying this Volkswagen Passat to this triple murder. As I've mentioned before in previous videos, I find it incredibly odd that we don't have any single mention of a Volkswagen Passat being seen in or around the crime scene on December the 6th, 1995. It's important to remember and for me to reiterate that the A130 was an incredibly busy road back in 1995, and the time in which Darren Nichols states he turned into Workhouse Lane would have been shortly after rush hour. He would have had to have come down the A130, stopped and held up a queue of traffic behind him, and then cut across Main Road down into Workhouse Lane. Yet not one eyewitness account exists of ever seeing a Volkswagen Passat. Not only would we have those potential eyewitness sightings, but then he also pulls back out onto the lane and reattends some moments later. But quite simply, no one recalls seeing a Volkswagen Passat entering or exiting the lane on the evening of these murders. What certainly adds a lot more credibility to the white vehicle being involved in these murders is the fact that we not only have the mention of the Range Rover being seen with this vehicle, but also the description of the occupants of this Range Rover match that of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. How do we explain these multiple eyewitness accounts of this white vehicle being seen with the Range Rover and also a high-performance tyre track being actually recovered from the scene of the crime? Everything adds up, in my opinion, to suggest that a second vehicle was at this crime scene. That is why we have no footprints entering or exiting the lane. We have a great tale by Darren Nichols of how he drove the Volkswagen Passat to this crime scene, yet we don't have any tangible evidence to suggest that this Volkswagen was ever anywhere near Workhouse Lane. I certainly believe that we have very strong circumstantial evidence that a second vehicle was involved in the murders of Tucker, Tate and Rolfe. It may be that these occupants of this white vehicle didn't actually kill these three individuals, but I believe that this vehicle either met them down a lane or travelled down there in convoy on the evening of December the 6th. There's actually more evidence to suggest a second vehicle was involved than actually Darren Nichols' version of events on its own. We don't have any tangible proof that Darren Nichols and a VW Passat ever entered Workhouse Lane, but we have the multitude of eyewitness reports and now a high-performance tyre track found at the entrance to Workhouse Lane. The presence of this tyre track is incredibly important. Now, regardless of your thoughts and theories on this tyre track, it's incredibly difficult to ignore its existence. The fact that we have a footprint here of a high-performance vehicle is incredibly intriguing. It's mentioned quite a lot in the countless eyewitness reports during this case. Could this have been a gangster's vehicle, an Essex police vehicle, an Essex drug squad vehicle? Does this tie in with the reports that the drug squad actually found their bodies before 7 AM on December the 7th? Does this tie in with the countless eyewitness reports of a white vehicle being seen driven at speed with the Range Rover on the afternoon of December the 6th? However you cut it, the fact that this tyre track is there is incredibly important. Hopefully you found today's video interesting. You should be able to see in front of you very shortly some other videos from the channel, so do feel free to check those out. And also you'll see the Essex Boys playlist, which has all of the videos from the channel in one folder.